Welcome back to the Mortgage Mayhem podcast. I'm your humble host, G Money, bringing you the truth, the trends, and tools you need to thrive in this wild world of real estate and finance. Hey, just kind of been out, still a little under the weather, but I just had to pull myself to the mic today. Got a good interview for my guy, Caleb Christopher over at creativetc.io. Man, I've been out. I've had like a sinus infection, a cold. I was at my homecoming about 2 weeks ago, which was a barn burner to say the least. Tennessee State University owes me nothing. Seen a whole bunch of my friends, a whole bunch of my frat brothers. We just had a great time. But in the midst of all that, I got, and I've never had a sinus anything, and it just kind of hit me, and I've been out for like a week now. So, got some antibiotics in my system, and we're kind of fighting it. We're almost on the other side of it, but that's why I wasn't here last week. I was pretty much just done last week. And like I said, I crawled to the mic today. So feeling a little bit better, but, we're going to just try to work through this to the best of our ability. But in the meantime, between time, let's do some house cleaning here real quick.
Welcome to the Mortgage Mayhem podcast, where the mortgage game meets real life, real talk, and a whole lot of chaos. We break down the deals, the drama, and the data behind the scenes of real estate finance, with a twist of street smarts, savvy, and a touch of madness. Before we dive in, here's the deal. The Mortgage Mayhem podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are not attorneys, CPAs, or licensed financial advisors, and nothing you hear on this show should be taken as legal, financial, or investment advice. Always consult a licensed professional before making financial decisions.
All right. Hopefully everybody heard that. It's just been a crazy world since the last since the last time we was here, of course. A lot of stuff been happening in the world, a lot of mayhem, of course, a lot of, just a lot. I just kind of been in bed, just, listening and trying to wrap my mind around where's this world going, what we got, what's happening out here in the world. It's just been crazy, Government's been crazy. Government's still shut down. I think we might be on day 30 something now. And just seeing something, the president saying that he's not wanting to give folks SNAP benefits because of whatever the reason, Democrats this, Democrats that. And we all know that, the president's in charge of the Senate. They got the Senate, they got the House, of course, the presidency. So, anytime I hear them saying that the Democrats, I just, that's just code, where they're trying to get some things across the finish line, and the Democrats are standing in the way of that because the Democrats don't want folks to not have insurance, and if they go ahead and caved in, the insurance waivers from Obamacare will go away, and the president and his big beautiful bill, billionaires, multi-millionaires, they'll get those tax cuts that they've been just sitting on the sidelines waiting for. So it looks like the Democrats is playing hardball, and the president is playing hardball with the American people. So, we're gonna touch a little bit on stuff like that. I don't know if Caleb comes up, we'll bring him in, but we're gonna move through this because, like I said, I'm still not feeling the best, but I just wanted to come in and just talk about some of the things that I deem necessary for us to talk about. But in the meantime, between time, let's get into it. That ain't what we want. That's what we want right here. Nope, that ain't what we want. Where is here we go. All right, so America's 10 most dangerous cities, according to Citizens on Non-Bureau's Crime Index. A new ranking from Non-Bureau's Crime Index reveals which U.S. cities residents considered the most dangerous based on their own experiences and perceptions of safety. The list, which compiles under submitted data on crime levels, shows several major metropolitan areas continuing to struggle with high rates of violence and theft, according to the 2025 Numbea Crime Index. Memphis, Tennessee tops the list as the most dangerous city in America, followed by Detroit, Baltimore. Rounding out the top five are Albuquerque, New Mexico, and St. Louis, Missouri. All cities that have faced ongoing challenges with property crime, violent offenses, and economic hardships. The rest of the top 10 includes Oakland, California, New Orleans, Louisiana, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Chicago, Philadelphia. Each city has been seen fluctuation in crime rates over recent years, often tied to social economic inequalities, police staffing issues, and post-pandemic urban recovery. While the Nubian rankings are based on citizens' perceptions rather than official crime statistics, they provide a clear picture of how residents feel about safety in their communities. The data underscores a growing concern among urban dwellers about rising crime and the need for stronger community investment, policing reform, and economic opportunity. Despite these challenges, local leaders in many of the listed cities continue working to rebuild trust and implement strategies aimed at improving public safety. A reminder that perception and progress often move hand in hand. So as you can see, here's your top 10 right here. Memphis, Detroit, Baltimore, Albuquerque, St. Louis, Oakland, New Orleans, Milwaukee, Chicago, and Philadelphia. So, these cities got some things to work on. I think a big part of it is, not so many opportunities. Big cities, as big as these cities are, they need like opportunity for, bigger opportunities for folks. Because really most folks aren't doing crime, unless they feel like they don't have the opportunities to be successful as people. It's always been that problem. These cities always are on the list because they are urban cities. Most of these cities, they don't have a lot of opportunities for people of color. So people of color they just got this thing where they're just not going to sit around. They're going to get to it. They're going to figure out a way, to make something happen. And in those cases, people are unalived. Opportunities are, just so scarce where folks just feel like they got to do what they got to do in order to, maintain any type of livelihood. So I just, I'm not surprised when I see, Detroit, Memphis, these are mainly cities of color, and most of the resources tend to, not end up in these places of color. So, over the years, month after month, year after year, no opportunities, lack of opportunities. You're going to find that these cities are going to be crime ridden. Neighborhoods are, pretty much trash. Property values are pretty much zero. So folks are going to be acting out because, when they look around, there's nothing to be happy about. And if they figure they got to do X, Y, and Z in order to, feed their families, they're going to do X, Y, and Z. So these cities that's, here in the top 10 doesn't surprise me at all. These are, like I said, some of the major cities, in the United States of America. Beautiful cities. Detroit, beautiful. Memphis, beautiful. But, they've been so downtrodden and left behind over the years. They just can't because of the lack of opportunities, they just can't, not be on this list because most of the people there are lacking of opportunity. And when that happens, then crime usually follows. So we'll keep our eye on that as well. And, we'll see if these things are, something that can be turned around, right? All right, so let's keep it moving. All right. All right. So, Justice Department investigates alleged donor fraud in Black Lives Matter movement. The U.S. Justice Department has launched an investigation to where the leaders of the Black Lives Matter and other affiliate groups defrauded donors who contributed tens of millions of dollars during the 2020 racial justice protests. According to multiple sources familiar with the matter, federal I just got threw off right there. Somebody just popped. Federal officials had issued subpoenas and executed at least one search warrant in recent weeks as part of the probe. The investigations, which began under the Biden administration, had gained renewed attention during the Trump administration, is examining how donations estimated at over 90 million were handled and spent. While it remains unclear whether criminal charges will follow, the inquiry adds to ongoing scrutiny of BLM organization financial transparency. The foundation has faced criticism since confirming in 2022 that $6 million in donations were used to purchase a Los Angeles-based property. The Justice Department spokesperson declined to comment on the ongoing investigation, which continues to unfold amid concerns from civil rights groups about potential political targets of progressive organizations. So, 90 million coming from, donations, and you don't have any kind of accounting for it, then you're going to be in some trouble. People going to be, looking, especially folks, once again, folks of color, you got to understand, you have to cross your T's and dot your I's when you're out here in these streets, when you're trying to do a good thing, but a part of doing a good thing also means you got to be held accountable for, especially these nonprofits, people like this who's trying to do, something good, who has a cause, but then you rake in $90 million and you can't just, show these folks like where that money has gone, what you did with it. That's going to always be a problem, especially for people of color. So when you get into these types of situations, you must understand and know you got to come to the table squeaky clean because you're dealing with millions. And then, you're getting certain, people saying that you're doing wrong with the money, and they're already mad at the fact that it's a Black Lives Matter, situation in the first place. And then they look over and see that you collected over $90 million and you can't have an accountant for that. It's going to be an issue. So, I don't know what's really going on. We're going to keep a close eye. And Mr. D don't like DEI, don't really like anything of color. That administration, once they get in your business, they trying to take you down. And, Black Lives Matter is like a nasty taste in their mouth anyway. So whatever they got to do to try to take you down, that's exactly what they're going to do. So, you should have knew that from, the Biden administration kind of let you kind of maybe get away started, looked into it, maybe saw some, but, said, hey, let the next administration deal with it. If they can find something, then so be it. If not, that was your warning shot right there. That's when you should have been, making sure your I's was crossed and, your T's was crossed and your I's was dotted in that moment. Now you got, the lynch mob, on your back, and you already know how they going to go. They want to you see what they did in DC. They repaved over the Black Lives Matter, street thing that they had out there in DC. They don't like what it stood for in the moment, and now they got an opportunity to put a black eye on it. That's exactly what they're gonna do. So hopefully they got their T's crossed and their I's dotted, and they can push past this, because they'll be transparent and they'll be able to give these folks what they're looking for, to get these folks up off of their back, because they want to take this organization out for sure. But we'll keep our own and we'll let you know. All right, let's keep it moving. All right, let's see where we at. Nah, that ain't where we at. Let's keep it moving. Nope. All right. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff on here today, guys. I'm just, like I said, I'm just trying to make sure that, like I said, just get it in, get out of here before I fall out the chair. But for the first time since April 2021, there are now more people looking for jobs than there are openings in the U.S. economy. In July, available positions fell about 7.2 million, while the number of unemployed rose slightly higher to 7.24 million. It's a sign that hiring is slowing down after years of rapid growth. Even though layoffs remain relatively low, the job market is shifting, and it could mean tougher competition for workers and more cautious move from employers. So there you go, folks. For the first time in a long time, we got more people unemployed than there is job openings. So, that just kind of just lets you know where we are in this economy right now. And, based off of what we're seeing, I don't think that's going to change much, right? So, we'll keep our eye on this as well. But, a lot of jobs have been slashed, since this new administration has come in. So this number is not like something that's really, alarming. It's just bad out here, people. Like I said in some past episodes, you better have your side hustle together. You better be tight at your job, wherever you're working at, because these folks are not playing with you. They are trying to take this food up off of your table. So, you better lock in into whatever it is that you're doing, because, you'll look up and you will be, on the sidelines as well, unemployed. Especially a person of color, the DEI and whatever the things that the markers they used to use in order to bring people of color into these corporate, situations are not there anymore. They don't have to abide by those rules anymore. And, unless you're talented, they can find somebody that's not your color to come in and fill these positions. So if you out there and you're working hard, keep your head down, stay focused until we could get to a better place, because from the looks of it, you're expendable, and they're not hesitating to make sure they let you know that. So we'll keep our eyes on that. But I just thought we'd bring that to the table, because it's hard out there, and if you're not smart and you haven't figured it out, you will be left behind, and it's only going to get worse. All right. So stay focused, folks. All right, let's keep it moving. All right. So in the New York mayoral race, 26 billionaires have donated over 22 million to super PACs opposing Democratic socialist Zohran Mamdani, who leads polls by double digits ahead of today's top donors. ahead of November 4th election. Top donors include Michael Bloomberg, 8.3 million, Joe Jebby, 3 million, and Bill Ackman, 1.7.5 million, fearing Madami's rent freezes, tax hikes, and billionaires shouldn't exist stands. Despite the desperation, Madami keep it as elite panic over progressive reform. So, I don't really know a lot about Mondani. I've kind of just been like late to the party, so to speak. But from the looks of it, he putting, belt to ass out there in New York. And, the rich is not liking it. They're calling him a socialist, blah, 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 the buzzwords when they don't like, a progressive opinion or a progressive ideology, to come to the forefront. They just start, like on the left, they start naming, names like Hitler, blah, 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 and then on the right, they start naming, folks on the left as socialists and, it's just ugly in the political world right now. And it just seems like Madani has an agenda that he's put forth. He's a Muslim. I think his religion is Muslim. And I think that's kind of one of the big things. They're saying he doesn't like the Jews, blah, blah, blah. But he has all kind of young Jews who's, out there campaigning for him, willing to vote for him. So I'm not sure exactly. This is like one of those tests. I know people in the Democratic Party doesn't want to endorse him. I think Obama just denied an endorsement. Hakeem Jeffries hasn't endorsed him from the Democratic Party. So they're scared in one sense. They got one foot in. They see what he's doing. They see the energy that he's bringing. But the second foot is all the way over there because they don't want to be labeled, any kind of socialist or, anything that can put a taint on the Democratic Party. They don't want to endorse heavily, but, they're trying to rub elbows with him just in case if, what he's bringing to the table catches fire. And it's just something that, they could potentially run on across, the nation. So we'll keep our eye on it. Madami, the election is today. So this time tomorrow, we'll know if he'll be the mayor. He's running against, former governor. I can't even remember his name. But, he's from every indicator, he's mopping up the floor with him. So tonight's going to be a interesting, evening of election, outcomes, because a lot of people are saying that, a lot of Democrats are mopping up the floors with some of these MAGA opponents that they have. So we'll keep our eye on it. And probably this time next week, I'll be able to, let you know my opinion on these races and what's, what to look forward to. So interesting. All right. All right. So what is this? Is this it right here? Nope. All right, so a new lending tree studies reveal that fewer than 5% of people with mortgages in America's 5 largest metropolitan areas are under age 30, highlighting how rising home prices, steep interest rates, and inflation are keeping many young adults out of the housing market. According to the report, only 3.1% of adults under 30 have a mortgage in these metro areas. The share is highest in Nashville, 9.4%, Indianapolis, 8.4%, and Pittsburgh, 7%, while the lowest rates are found in San Jose and New York It's also that way in Los Angeles at 1.3%. Although young adults make up roughly 20% of the adult population, they account for just 4.7% of all mortgage holders nationwide. The study also found that younger buyers look to homes costing about 75% less than those sought out by older buyers. On average, under 30 buyers search for homes under 92,000, compared with about 368,000 for older adults. Mortgage debt among 18 to 29-year-olds totals about 527 billion, representing 4.2% of all U.S. mortgage debt, far below other age groups. Lending Tree chief analyst Max Schultz attributes this generational gap to high housing costs, student loan burdens, and of course, inflation. He notes that while young workers in big city may earn higher income, skyrocketing living expenses and limited affordable housing options make homeowners little more than a pipe dream for many. Schultz advises prospective young buyers to shop around for mortgages, rates, explore flexible loan types, and carefully plan budgets before purchasing. Despite today's challenges, he emphasizes that home ownership is still possible for determined buyers willing to strategize and explore different financial paths. All right, so as you can see, you know, it's kind of like the same thing though. If you really think about it, most people that start off, they're not buying $300,000 houses. You're gonna probably be in that $100,000 range somewhere in there. So I get what they're saying, but I don't really see any difference than what it's always been. Certain areas like Nashville, I was just there. Real estate is just insane. You barely any nook and cranny of land they are building on it. The city, I was there, 30 years ago, and the city doesn't even look the same. I mean, it looks like, just a group of investors just made up their mind and just said, you know what, all the areas that we can build on, all the areas that we can grab properties and rehab them, let's get at it, because just some of the areas, like even around the school, there's multi-million dollar apartment complexes. It's all kind of new builds everywhere, Airbnbs galore. So I think what it is investors are in the game, and they're in the game heavy. So first time home buyers, along with, it's just, I don't really see it being like a big difference from, when we were buying houses, 20, 30 years ago. You couldn't buy a $300,000 house because your income, couldn't afford that. So, that's kind of what's going on now. People are, if they are buying houses, they can only buy what their income can afford. So, but, at the same time, I think folks, younger folks need to understand that, grabbing properties early, and having a home where you don't have to be renting is always important. Not to say that renting is a bad thing, because, a lot of older people are renting more so than buying. So, it's just one of those things. Hold on for 1 second. Phone's ringing. But anyway, we'll keep our eye on that, and we'll let you know what we think about that as time goes on. All right, let's keep it moving. Detroit, where we are. There we go. So, a national nonprofit called Reparation Generation is helping Black descendants of enslaved people in Metro Detroit buy homes and reconnect with their ancestry through a program that provides $25,000 in housing support and genealogy services. Founded in 2020 after the murder of George Floyd, the California-based group is working to build a model for reparation nationwide. The organization's Detroit program, now in its third round, has already helped 12 residents become homeowners since 2022, with 6 new recipients added this fall and plans to assist 4 more by year's end. For participants like Stephanie Connie, the program has been life-changing. The Detroit insurance agency owner used the $25,000 to secure a home for herself and her daughter and traced their family roots back to the 1800s. It's not just for me, it's for the ancestors who paid the price for me to be here, she said. It's not just applicants must be U.S. citizens who identify as Black and can trace their ancestry to enslaved people in the U.S. They must live in Wayne, Oakland, or Macomb counties and agree to buy a home locally. Selected participant complete orientation, financial assessments, and genealogy consultants before receiving funds directly to an escrow account. The nonprofit raises money from individual donors, foundation, and corporations, particularly from Americans who acknowledge benefiting from systematic racial inequalities. From October 2023 to September 2024, it reported $314,859 in revenue, with most funds coming from contributions. The program has also drawn support from white contributors like Joni and Jim Tedesco of Livonia and Mary Lowry of Redford Township, who says they're motivated by fairness and accountability. They view their monthly donations as a way to address the generational advantages their families gain through programs like the GI Bill, benefits that normally didn't go to minorities. Excuse me. What can you say about this? I mean, this is beautiful. I mean, what's even more beautiful, you have, white folks who understand and who's not so jaded in racism that, they had an advantage, where if we would have started off on an even playing field, then the world that we know it would be different. And these folks understand that, so they're willing to put forth some of their wealth to help others to gain some type of generational wealth. So in this story, that's the biggest piece, the reparations part, the group who's putting this together, kudos, round of applause. But then you also have, some folks who aren't people of color who's participating, and you can't just let that go unnoticed, right? So, we'll definitely keep our eye on that. I think that's a great thing for the city of Detroit, and for the state of Michigan, and then all the other places that they're doing this at. And also you get to, kind of figure out your history as well. And the same, I think that's a nice touch to it. They're not only giving you the funds you need to purchase a home, but they're also giving you access to your ancestry, where you can go and kind of find out where you come from and what lineage that you are a part of. So we'll keep our eye on this, but this is big. I like this, and I look forward to kind of seeing the fruits of the labor, so to speak. All right, let's keep it moving. All right, so a Harvard Business School study found that daughters of hardworking moms grow up to grow up to be more resilient, confident leaders who earn higher incomes than those raised by stay-at-home moms. Watching their mothers balance life and grind taught them ambition and independence. The study also found that sons of working moms tend to grow into men who step up more at home and in relationships. So yeah, I wanted to bring this to the forefront as well. I thought this was unique because I agree. Just my experience, dating and just kind of like in hindsight, looking back, this is I think this is true because the ones who was out there getting it, the daughters and the sons, including myself, tend to be more independent, tend to be more of ones who, get it from the mud and can stay focused and always, take care of themselves, so to speak. So, yeah, I like this. I thought it was, something that we should bring to the forefront because it's important, right? Especially for young girls who, and young men who are part of single family homes. When they see that the moms is grinding and they're handling their business, it's just gonna rub off. And that's what young ladies and young men need, and especially in this new world, they need to be able to see that. They need to be able to understand that hard work does pay off, right? So we'll keep that at the forefront as well. But we're gonna keep it moving. All right, so let's talk about SNAP here. So these are the 48 states who won't be receiving federal food assistance. So 48 states are warning millions of low-income Americans that they will not receive federal food assistance in November if the government shutdown continues, according to notices on government websites and public statements from governors. SNAP, often referred to as food stamps, has traditionally been entirely federally funded but is administered by state. That means the shutdown impact on states and when benefits will start to dry out will vary by state. Virginia has warned of a lapse in benefits, but Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin declared a state of emergency last week, announcing he used funds from the state surplus to provide release of the 850,000 Virginians who depend on the program. There have been no public statements from officials or postings on Nebraska government website as of Monday afternoon. So this is what we're dealing with, folks. It's just, this is just the world that we're living in right now. It just feels like, what they used to say, the rich getting richer and the poor getting poor. And the rich is really trying to just put the foot on the ones who are not rich so they can continue to maintain their riches, because that's what this is all about. They are punishing the poor or the ones who are, in need so they can get their tax cuts and the different, little line items of monies that's going to, flow into their coffer, if they're able to get their budget passed, their bill passed. And that's what this is about. They feel like if they, put the foot on neck long enough and people, cry out for help, then, the other opposite party will relinquish and cave. And it doesn't just seem like it's going down that way. And that's what's really driving them crazy because, they figured that by now this would have been squared away. The Democrats would have caved. They'd have got their tax cuts and, they could have continued to, give folks food assistance. But this time the Democrats is like, it's not just food assistance. insurance as well. As people probably know, if they are, if they do have health care, the premiums have doubled, triple, quadruple in some cases. And that's what the Democrats say that they are fighting for. So, like I said, we'll keep our eye. I know the president just was saying he'll give half, and different states have different federal judges have said that he can't do this. They have enough money to, furnish SNAP benefits recipients, but once again, the president is the president. He's going, stand 10 toes down for the billionaires and, these folks who, need this assistance. He can really care less at the end of the day. So we'll keep our eyes on it, and we'll let you know as time goes on. Of course, he's saying that it's the Democrats' fault. They're saying it's his fault. But at the end of the day, if you watch, like past interviews, him as a regular folk also was saying that if this happens, then it would be the party in charge's fault. And in this case, the party's in charge of everything is the Republicans. So if they wanted this to go away, they can make this go away. So we'll keep our eyes on it. We'll let you guys know, in the future what's happening. All right. All right. Like I said, I'm not going to be on here long. I'm in and out today, but I wanted to touch on this real quick. Michael Jackson, Forbes' 25th annual ranking reveals that music legends continue to dominate even in afterlife. Leading the list once again is Mike J, whose estate earned a staggering $105 million this year, bringing his total posthumous earnings to $3.5 billion since his live in 2009. Jackson fortune stems from massive music catalog sales, royalty, and global entertainment ventures like MJ, the musical, and Cirque du Soleil, Michael Jackson's one in Las Vegas. Other top earners include Dr. Seuss. That's crazy. 85 million, still the top-selling children's author with new Netflix projects and a Warner Brothers adaptation on the way. Pink Floyd's Richard Wright and Syd Barrett, 81 million each, earned from Sony's $400 million deal for the band's music catalog. The Notorious B.I.G., 80 million. Estate sold half of his catalog and likeness rights to Primary Wave Music. Miles Davis, 21 million. 90% of his estate was acquired by Reservoir Media, the head of his 100th birthday celebration. Elvis Presley, 17 million. Graceland remains in the family despite recent legal drama. Jimmy Buffett, 14 million. Margaritaville's empire continues to expand even after his passing. Rounding out the list are Bob Marley, 13 million, John Lennon, 12 million, Prince, 11 million, Honor Palmer, 11 million, and Kobe Bryant, 10 million. All providing that timeless icons still earn millions long after their final curtain call. Together, the top 13 estates brought in $541 million before taxes, with musicians once again proving that their legacies and royalties never die. It's crazy, right? So I just wanted to talk about that because, you just kind of, when they was here, you loved them. And as you can see, even when they're not here anymore, you still love them. They're making, millions upon millions, even after the fact. So big ups to those legacies, because it could be the other directions where they're not making any money. So that generational wealth is able to be passed down to, their kids. So I just think this is great for Mike J, Prince, Notorious B.I.G., 80 million. You know, that's a lot. You know, so definitely want to give them props where props is due. All right. Okay. Let's see. I think we're getting ready to get out of here, folks. Here we got a couple mortgage hacks. If I can find them. I don't think I have them. Where's my mortgage hacks at, people? Yeah, I got them. So today's mortgage hacks is the deferred down strategy. Negotiate seller financing with a 6 to 12 month deferred down payment clause. Use rental income or refi proceeds to cover it later. Zero cash up front. Equity hack number 2 is the equity recycling through LLC layering. Hold multiple small properties in individual LLCs. Once one property appreciates, refi and sell the LLC, not the property, to avoid transfer taxes and reset depreciation legally. Hack number 3, the vendor credit bridge. Lender vendor financing for renovations. Some contractors offer 60 to 90-day terms. Time it so your draw or refi hits before payment is due. Instant no interest bridge funding. Hack number 4, the FHA to DSCR flip. Buy an FHA property as owner occupied, live in it for 12 months, then refi into a DSCR loan for investor cash flow. It's one of the fastest legal ways to build rental property portfolios with minimum capital. So that is our show for today. I thought we were going to have an interview, but our guest got backed up, so we're going to reschedule that. But family, that's the wrap up for the Mortgage Mayhem. This is show number 34. Today we unpacked a little crime, a little economy, legacy, and opportunities, and how they all tie back to one thing: financial control. A huge thank you, to the folks out there who's been tuning in. Don't forget, you can catch replays on Mortgage Mayhem on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. If today's episode gave you something to think about, share it, subscribe, and tag me with your favorite takeaways. I'm G Money, reminding you to invest smart, stay informed, and keep turning chaos into cash flow. See you next week on the Mortgage Mayhem podcast. I'm out.